Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are live from the city of Sarajevo in the tiny country of Serbia. Due to the recent political strife between the militant groups of this country and the Austro-Hungarian government, Archduke Francis Ferdinand has decided to make an inspection tour of the city. We do not expect much more trouble from the Serbian terrorist group, the Black Hand, which earlier today had made an attempt on the Archduke's life. However, we have heard from a reliable source that Gavrilo Princip, an 18-year-old member of this group, is lurking in the crowd, awaiting the passage of the Archduke. Here come the Archduke and his wife now. The crowd is roaring with excitement. Wait a minute, folks. There's Gavrilo Princip, the man I spoke about earlier. He is violently shoving his way through the crowd. Oh no, folks. I think two shots have been fired. The Archduke is going to be killed. Oh my God. Oh my God.
These two shots ignited the powder keg that had already been building in Europe. European leaders now assembled their forces for the inevitable war. From Austria-Hungary, Emperor Franz Joseph. Representing Russia, Tsar Nicholas II. From Germany, Kaiser Wilhelm II. Representing France, President Raymond Francaire. From Italy, King Victor Emmanuel III. And finally, from England, King George V. Kaiser Wilhelm was an arrogant, egotistical, ambitious man. Under his leadership, Germany became a rising industrial state and was recently challenging Great Britain for the supremacy of the high seas. At this time, there were also two blocks of nations in Europe. One group, called the Triple Alliance, consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. The other group, the Triple Entente, was composed of Great Britain, France, and Russia. Sensing that war was imminent, the Kaiser intended to follow the strategic plan of his top general, von Moltke. This, he well knew, would irritate Britain because he would be violating neutral Belgium. After after Serbia had mobilized her army, Austria-Hungary, with the consent of Germany, declared war on Serbia. Russia, sworn defender of Serbia, mobilized her forces to counter the Austrian aggression. France then entered the war on the side of Russia, in keeping with her previous pledge of alliance. Great Britain, however, was still hesitant to join the conflict, but later entered the war upon Germany's invasion of neutral Belgium. At first, the Russian army, which outnumbered the Germans by far, suffered minor defeats at the hands of Germany, which was fighting a two-front war. Let us now take a look at the Western Front. The question of supply became vital to the French. The Germans were able to send fresh men, more ammunition, food, guns, clothing, and medicine to the battles. The French, on the other hand, were handicapped. They had only one narrow dirt road. This road, soon known to the French as the Sacred Way, was burdened with traffic. At its busiest time, a vehicle of some sort passed over it every 14 seconds. The Germans quickly caught on to the value to their enemy of the Sacred Way and raked it with artillery fire. The scenes on the narrow Sacred Way were terrible. Fire, death, road repair under fire. The wounded wounded again. Supplies scattered in the ditches and over the road, but somehow the traffic rolled on. Occasionally, an isolated truck often fell victim to German artillery. One of the longest yet inconclusive battles of the war was at Verdun. It lasted almost 11 months. The French generals decided that the best way to defend the key area of Verdun was to build a ring of forts about it, 8 miles from the town. One of these forts was Fort Vaux. Here, under the leadership of French General Pétain, the French forces held their positions boldly. During the course of the struggle at Fort Vaux, the Germans used all the weapons at their disposal to crush the seemingly helpless French. Pétain, among his frightened men, took many desperate actions to find aid. One of these was the use of the carrier pigeon, a practice not uncommon among the French army. In fact, this bird, although his mission was unsuccessful, received the Croix de Guerre medal for its efforts. French efforts to transport supplies were unsuccessful. The men of Fort Vaux eventually surrendered, but the French were able to recapture Verdun on December 15, 1916. Trade between the United States and the Allies increased dramatically as the war progressed. On the other hand, U.S. trade with the Central Powers diminished greatly. In exchange for corn, wheat, and other foodstuffs, the United States received textile products from Great Britain. Meanwhile, in Europe, Austria-Hungary was suffering extreme losses at the hands of the Russians. On the Western Front, France was fortifying her defenses, and Great Britain was launching an attack against the Germans in Belgium. At the the same time, Germany was initiating her famous U-boat campaign on the coast of Western Ireland. One of the most notorious weapons in the German arsenal was poison gas, that is, chlorine and mustard gas. They abandoned this weapon because of their inability to maintain localized attacks and to avoid accidental casualties in their own ranks. Another of the most famous weapons of the German arsenal was the Zeppelin. It was effective only in that it inspired terror among the urban masses of Great Britain. Often, the anti-aircraft missiles launched by British forces would miss their Zeppelin targets and fall back to Earth, destroying some of their own installations. As a result, Zeppelin flame bombs continued raining on England. Fighting between Germany and Russia was on the increase. Also, attention was turned to the Dardanelles near Turkey. The Italians, realizing that Germany was the aggressor, left the Central Powers to join the Allies. Italy's forces, however, were poorly organized and were thus badly beaten by the Austrians.
Big loser.
Shock engulfed the United States as the British passenger liner Lusitania was sunk off the coast of Ireland by a German U-boat on May 7, 1915. Upon receiving word of this disaster, the U.S. sent a note to Germany demanding that they assume liability for the deaths of American citizens aboard that ship.